How long is the snooze gonna be? At least I can
I
update
don't
it.
know, but should you update it?
No, see, if I can get the student rep started.
So that's what I was gonna say.
I
Should you?
have, I might have to look at
I was
yours.
gonna say, and I'll push it over. And
Yeah.
down if it's not.
Dang it.
Right. Oh yeah, Neil Davis. There was a bunch of social studies. Neil Davis, Jeff. Social studies.
Good evening, everyone. I will go ahead and call this first meeting of 2023 to order. I hope that everyone enjoyed their winter break and looking forward to making this one of your best years. Thank you to those attending in person tonight, as well as those staying engaged by watching our meeting at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the lobby on the desk and turn it in to our board secretary, Kim Coven, seated at the end on my left. Comments will take place during the designated community comment portion of our agenda. Before I start the agenda, I want to take a moment to introduce those seated at the table with me. I'll introduce myself. Somebody reminded that I never do that. I'm Ruthina Malone, president. To my right, we have Superintendent Matt Degner, directors Mary Kate Pilcher-Hyatt, Charlie Eastham, Vice President Lisa Williams. To my left, directors Molly Abraham, J.P. Clausen, oh my God, Jane Finch, and Board Secretary Kim Coven. First up on the agenda, we will have our student representative updates, and we will start with Gabrielle Williams of Tate High. If you want to make it to the podium and the microphone. Hi.
This trimester, we've welcomed 22 new students to Tate, most of whom transferred from other schools in the Iowa City School District. We hold orientation for new students every trimester and consider it a high priority to help them feel welcome in our building. Orientation with the new students went well. These students appreciate the opportunity to learn about Tate and to learn the names of students and staff. This is a time for them to share their struggles with school so that we can develop a personalized learning plan for success. We want every student to feel comfortable coming to Tate and help them fit in by teaching them our expectations. In keeping with our commitment to PBIS, Ms. Browning is committed to these orientations and wants her first interaction with new students to be positive and transparent. On Thursday, we're having a school trip to the movies to see Wakanda Forever. We had to reschedule this actually due to winter break and the snow days. We're all looking forward to going and walking to Sycamore Mall and seeing the movie together. We had a successful December fundraiser for our food pantry. A local band, Homebrewed, held a benefit concert at Wildwood as a fundraiser for Tate's Pantry. It was a huge success, and the concert raised around $3,000 from a combination of online donations, ticket sales, and selling student artwork. Tate provides students with a food pantry that is available for use at any time. Every Friday, bags of food are waiting at the door for students to easily grab on their way home for the weekend. We sent home 144 bags of food and try one, which is 65% increase from last year. Families utilize the food pantry most. My bad, y'all. I'm messing up. Before. Sorry.
It's okay.
We also had a holiday store. The Tate Holiday Store is a really special Tate tradition. It was originally started by Miss Brown in memory of her sister who passed away. Gifts are donated by community and staff members, and students are provided an opportunity to shop for their family and friends. This year, the store was open from December 18th to 20th. Every student who signed up had an opportunity to choose several gifts from the store. Once gifts were selected, student council and staff members wrapped the gifts and had them ready to go for students at the end of the day. The Tate Holiday Store aligns with our mission of supporting students in all areas of their lives and is another way to reinforce a culture of caring. Students are so happy to have gifts for their family, and staff love sharing holiday spirit with them. The Iowa Youth Writing Project. Tiana Warner from the Iowa Youth Writing Project and students from the university provide weekly 1-hour sessions with Tate students to work on their writing and give students a chance to publish and share their work. Circle group discussions, as well as writing activities, have allowed students to self-reflect and receive feedback. We have a diverse background of learners at Tate, and having Tiana provide these sessions has been a great avenue for our students to get engaged in writing and explore their creativity. We prepare for author Tiffany Jackson. She will be visiting Tate in March. To prepare for her visit, Ms. Johnson is reading aloud her novel entitled Monday's Not Coming in the library during lunch. She allows students to bring in their lunches and enjoy her book. Every Wednesday, we go to Houses to Homes. It's mostly student council, but anyone can go really. Students help out in the warehouse, cleaning donated items, and helping to organize them. Many Tate families have benefited from Houses in the Homes and think it's important to give back by helping out this helpful organization. Before winter break, the Tate Warriors basketball team participated in 2 games. Tate hosted the first game, and the second game was in Des Moines. The team held 3 practices a week to prepare for this tournament. Competition was stiff. The boys went 0-2, but they played hard and had fun. Coach Coffrin is proud of the fact that his 14 players are committed to a student-athlete mindset. Our team has increased their school attendance and has an academic goal of C or higher in all classes. These students strive to demonstrate core values on a daily basis at school. MLK Day preparations underway. Tate students will be taking part in a service day in honor of MLK Day. I'll report back on that. We look forward to volunteering in the community. Post-secondary and career experiences. Mr. Martin, our guidance counselor, has organized many field trips and lunch and learn speakers regarding post-secondary and career experiences. Tate students have taken part in field trips to Kirkwood, Capri College, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Day, as well as career caravan opportunities. We also have community business speakers during lunch about careers and job opportunities. It's important to begin planning for life after high school. Thank you for listening and for your service to the district. Please visit Tate anytime, and I'll show you around.
Thank you.
So much. Next up, we'll have the representatives from City High, Mary Kate Pugh and Ari Collins.
Hello. Good evening. Starting off with what Student Senate has been up to. Before winter break, we organized a can drive for the City High Food Pantry and for the Crisis Center. We did that over 2 weekends at the First Ave Hy-Vee as well as the North Dodge Hy-Vee. Students volunteered to just like run a donation booth, and it was super successful. We got over 800 pounds of supplies and almost $2,000 in monetary donations. So we delivered those to the Crisis Center, and the City High Food Pantry took what they needed, and it was great to see that be such a great success. Now Student Senate is planning a winter carnival to take place on January 21st. Students will participate in games and buy raffles, and there's a chance to earn prizes, and all the proceeds from that event will go to student clubs and projects to help fund those. We're also happy to announce that our new addition, like the upper and lower cafeteria, has proved to be a great place for hosting robotics. There's been several robotics competitions hosted there, so that's also great. And then our mock trial is a very strong program, and it's gearing up for its season.
Switch.
Yeah, I'll switch.
Okay. We're also looking forward to our show choir season coming up. We have a performance tomorrow along with West and Liberty, Choirs for a Cause, held at Liberty High, where all the JV and varsity show choirs will be performing to benefit charity. And then we have our first competition coming up this weekend, Saturday at Linn-Mar, followed by, I think, about another month of our competition season. So Mary Kate and I and all the rest of the kids in show choir are very excited for that. We've been having some big sports events recently. As you probably know, West and City High played off in the Extreme Arena in basketball, which had some very exciting games, including our boys team winning a very tight one by just 1 point, which is really exciting to watch. Our boys swim team is holding their senior night again against West this weekend, actually tonight, it's happening, and they were looking to set record attendance for their senior night, just kind of honoring our swim team. I have some friends in bowling who wanted to make sure they did not go unrecognized, so I just want to remind you that bowling's going on. They've been having a great season, having a great time. And then girls wrestling, as you guys also probably know, this is our first year as not certified, like sanctioned sport, where we'll have our state tournament coming up February 2nd and 3rd in the Extreme Arena again. So the girls team is getting really ready. And as you also probably know, our boys team is looking really good this year. And we're all looking forward to this Thursday, where we will be having a combined duel, boys and girls, against West High, held in the City High Arena. So really excited for that. Yep, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Liberty High reps could not attend tonight, so we will move on to West High Jaden Shin.
Hi all. Coming back from winter break, it's my second day on the job, which is being a student. So we'll see how the speech goes. But nevertheless, I'm here to update you on the first 10 days of January. We had 9 SEBA members selected to participate from our band, 8 or more boxes filled with clothing for our winter clothing and hygiene drive. We had 7 letters, and Miss Bergman, who is our Hero of Troy winner this year, she's our guidance counselor, and students have said that she is an adult in the building that they feel like they can trust. We had 60% of tardies eliminated with our new district policy, or at least, I don't know if it's district policy, maybe it is, but we had 15, or you get the point, 15 points. That's the number of points we won in our girls' basketball game against City High. We did lose by 1 for our boys' team, but it's okay. There are 4 letters in Student-Produced Innovative Theater, which is our student-run theater group, which is performing a show later this month. 3 is the number of debate tournaments. Our debate team has won in the IHSSA state debate tournament. We had 2 social study teachers having babies over winter break, so congrats to them. And 1 board of representatives who are proficient at selecting a speaker. So, yep, so that was my rendition of the countdown to 2023, and I wish you all a happy new year.
Well done. And thank you to all of our student reps for being with us tonight. Next, we'll move on to ICEA update with Brady Shutt, the ICEA president.
Hi, thank you, President Malone, Vice President Williams. It's not fair that I have to
I
follow.
know, you have to follow Shatain.
Cool, I do that all day long. I want just adult time, so. Director, Superintendent Decker, it's great to be here tonight and standing strong for public education. And I think it's really important that that's our message tonight. I have my old-time red shirt on. I'm a proud graduate of Eagle Grove High School and public schools, and I just couldn't be prouder to be an educator in the Iowa City Community School District. And just even this meeting, just the openness of the meeting, the fact that we're transparent about what we do, and that I think the beauty all of us know of public education is that every single student that comes to us, we embrace them with no questions asked. And we welcome them with open arms. We teach them to the very best of our ability. We think about them night and day, 24/7, and that's really the beauty and the magic of public education, and you know, all of the challenges, and you know, what I love about it is that every day there's an opportunity to make a difference with students, and that's a pretty powerful thing. So I couldn't be more proud to be here with all of you, and as partners in the work that we do, you know, with that message as we embark on what will be an interesting, you know, winter. Of course, but I do appreciate the legislative priorities that we have. I think they're distinctive across the state, and I've said that in the past, and I just think, you know, Kristen and your team, just the messaging has been fantastic. So I look forward to standing strong for public education alongside all of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next on our agenda, we will move to community comment. Speakers are reminded that during community comment, they can address the board about topics relevant to the district. Speakers are reminded that they will be given 4 minutes to speak before I reclaim the floor. Time will be displayed at the bottom of the screen to my left. And our first speaker tonight, and our only speaker, will be Joseph Dobrian.
Joseph Dobrian, 1015 Second Avenue. 4 weeks ago, a federal judge dismissed a lawsuit from parents who accused public school officials of hiding their children's gender transitions from them. Judge Mark Mastroianni ruled that while he is, quote, apprehensive about the alleged policy and actions of the Ludlow Public Schools with regard to parental notification, it cannot conclude the decision to withhold information shocks the conscience, end quote. The case revolved around a school's deliberate decision not to tell an 11-year-old girl's parents that she demanded to be treated as a member of the opposite sex. This child allegedly emailed school staff in February 2021 and announced that she wanted to go by a cluster of new pronouns. Quote, I am genderqueer. My new name will be redacted. If you dead name me or use any pronouns I am uncomfortable with, I will politely tell you. A list of pronouns you can use are, a long list follows. Please only use the ones I have listed and not the other ones. I do not like them, close quote. What 11-year-old expresses herself as that child allegedly did? Anyone with a brain knows that that letter was the work of an adult, almost certainly a social worker, administrator, or teacher. Afterwards, a school counselor allegedly sent an email to staff ordering them not to tell this child's parents about the gender identity change. Quote, the student is still in the process of telling his parents and is requesting that school staff refer to him as name redacted and use she, her pronouns with her parents and in written emails or letters home, close quote. Meanwhile, the parents claimed the girl's 12-year-old brother asked school staff to use female pronouns for him, and staff hid that information from his parents. According to this federal judge, it's no big deal if schools keep on 11-year-old parents, keep their 11-year-old child's parents from knowing about that child's life-altering decision, which eventually would lead to various drugs, hormones, and the cutting off of healthy breasts and genitals. Granted, this case did not take place in Iowa, but it did take place in a federal court. And knowing what I know about this district, I dare say this sort of thing will happen here too. And you, the district officials, have forced me on several occasions to suspect that you won't object. Parents love their children. Above all, parents want their children to have the best possible lives. It is madness to give this degree of authority to people who clearly want to teach these children to regard their parents as dangerous and unreliable, and to put their trust in people who would gladly see them literally mutilated. I ask each of you, declare yourselves publicly. The parents and the students of this district need to know, which side are you on? God love you.
That concludes our community comment. Next up, we have agenda approval for tonight's agenda. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
I'm a yay vote, Kim.
Thank you, Director Clausen. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is our consent agenda. I don't know if, before we move for approval, I know Director Finch had a couple of things that she wanted to pull.
I do. I thought you were going to ask about the bills first. No?
Huh?
Were you going to ask about any questions about the bills?
Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry, just a little. I didn't have any questions with the bills. I reviewed them. I don't know who else reviewed them this
I did,
go
I didn't
around?
have any questions.
Okay,
I have no
so
questions.
thank you, Director Finch. So, is there any items,
I'd like to pull items 3 and 8.
okay?
And I'd like to pull 10.
All right, is there a motion to approve our consent agenda minus items 3, I believe, 8, was that,
That's right.
and 10?
I move that we approve the consent agenda minus item 3, 8, and 10.
Second.
Kim, there has been a motion and a second, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
I'm a yay vote on that too, Kim.
Thank you, Director Clausen. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
That takes us to our first item that was pulled from consent agenda, which is item 3, the personnel agenda, and I'll kick it to you, Director Finch.
Thank you, President Malone. So, I was looking at the personnel agenda this weekend, and I'd like to vote it down, but I know that's not why I pulled it. When we think about this district, a lot of attention has been put on our F&P and the buildings and everything wonderful that's happening there, but really, what makes this district so special is the people. And I look at the personnel agenda and all of our wonderful personnel who have made such impacts on our students and our community and our district over the past many years, and whose impact will last for the many decades to come. And I just felt like I would be remiss if I didn't pull it tonight and express our gratitude for these individuals as they make room for the new educators to come in. I look at the names in this list, and there are rock stars, legends. So I just wanted to take 30 seconds. I know we have the Silver Salute at the end of the year, but I did want to acknowledge that we are indebted to these individuals, and I certainly wish them well, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for pulling that and highlighting. And I agree 100% with everything you said, and I won't embarrass one of those people in the room with us tonight because we get to do that later. As he's giving me the evil. I saw that look. But it is reviewing that for me over the weekend. It hit because I saw a lot of great names on that list. And I don't know how you can replace some of the knowledge, the dedication, and the passion that's on that list with a lot of the great people that will be leaving us at the end of this school year. So I appreciate you pulling that. I don't know if anybody else wanted to say anything, but you might not want to mention the first row person because he's looking at you.
Absolutely.
Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Absolutely. I move that we approve item number 3, personnel agenda.
Second.
All right, Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
I'm going to be a yay vote too, Kim. I can't get signed in for some reason.
Thank you, Director Clausen. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
That takes us to consent agenda item number 8. Director Finch, that's for you again.
Thank you, President Malone. Again, I'll just take 30 seconds of your time. Most of my career, I have looked for low-cost dental care for my patients so that they can have cancer treatment. And I saw this item on the agenda this weekend, and for me, from my perspective, in my world, this is a really big deal. Not only are we finding free dental care for these students, but we're bringing it to them. And so I understand that we've had the mobile dental clinic before. I don't know if we've had a private practitioner come into our schools to deliver pediatric dental care to our students. But I just wanted to thank the folks who are responsible for this, Jessica Jimerson, the folks at the Healthy Kids Clinic, and of course, Dr. Full. For the volunteer work, and I hope this is the beginning of a long, successful relationship. So,
Agreed.
warms my heart.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else has any additional comments. If not, I would
I can,
entertain.
Director Malone, or President Malone, I can share a little bit more detail
Yeah.
for Director Finch.
That'd
And
be
thank you
wonderful.
so much. This is a great partnership, and you're right, this is a service that is needed by our students. Beyond the mobile clinic, which we've also had, Healthy Kids Clinic is partnered with the College of Dentistry at the university in the past, but just because of appointment availability and cost, we currently have a waiting list of over 58 students through Healthy Kids Clinic that need these dental services, and so we're greatly appreciative of Dr. Full and her volunteering to help provide these services, along with the free medical and dental clinics of Iowa City, which is where she's going to provide these services to our students. So thanks so much for pulling it. This is a celebration, and we're truly appreciative of our partnership with the Healthy Kids Clinic and everything they do to provide those services in our buildings. And this is just one more piece of those services we can provide. So thanks.
Thank you.
I would just add that this is just another beautiful example of the public schools providing stewardship for the children that attend them. It's a beautiful thing, and I don't think that it's appreciated if you're not part of the system. So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you very much, Jane and Chase, for your comments and opening up the consent agenda to this really great opportunity.
I move that we approve item 8, ICCSD Volunteer Healthcare Provider Practice Agreement with Dr. Elizabeth Full.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
I'm a yay vote.
Thank you, Director Clausen. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
That takes us to item 10 that Vice President Williams pulled.
So not as uplifting as the last two polls, but it came out in Ops Committee earlier because of some organizational structural things going on. I would move to amend item 10 so that we still set the date as January 31st, 2023 for a public hearing, but that we leave open for now the date for the bid opening. And so instead of February 16th, that date for bid opening just remains open.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that amended public hearing? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I so move.
Is there a second? Okay. Kim, we're ready to vote on the amended item for the public hearing, but keeping open the bid date. And she has it up. She's great.
Online voting is open.
I'm a yay vote.
Thank you, Director Clausen. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
And that concludes our consent agenda. We'll move into public hearing, and the first one is the North Central Junior High Middle School, and I will throw it to Vice President Williams.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the North Central Junior High Middle School project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on December 13th, 2022. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on December 14th, 2022. The district will receive bids on this project at 2 p.m. January 31st, 2023 at the Facilities Management Conference Center, 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on December 14th, 2022. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public?
With that, we will close that public hearing and open the Wickham Elementary Playground Improvement Project hearing.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the Wickham Elementary Playground Improvement Project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on December 13th, 2022. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on December 14th, 2022. The district will receive bids on this project at 2:00 p.m. January 12th. Should we be receiving bids on January? I guess January 12th, 2023 at the Facilities Management Conference Center, 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on December 14th, 2022. Are there any questions from the board?
Now you can ask your question.
I actually thought today was January 13th and that the 12th was in the past and that would be impossible. But then I realized that today is in fact the 10th and we are on track to do that on the 12th. So I rescind my question.
Okay, are there any additional questions from the board? Okay, Director Williams.
Any questions from the public?
Hearing none, we will go ahead and close that public hearing, and we will move to our presentations. And the first one is our annual audit report, and I will kick it to Chief Operating Officer Leslie Finger.
Well, it's Chief Financial Officer, but not.
Thank you.
But while our representative from RSM, Aaron McLaughlin, comes forward to do the presentation regarding the audit, Kristen is pulling up the presentation. I would just like to thank all of the district staff who helped prepare any of the documents and cooperate with our auditors in the process of preparing this audit throughout the year. Aaron will get into some of the more details, but you do have the report presented in your board. It will be posted online so that it'll be available for anybody to look at when they want. So I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you everyone for having me. As Leslie mentioned, my name is Aaron McLaughlin, and I am a manager with RSM. We serve as the district's public accounting firm and auditors, and we are here tonight to share the results of the financial audit for the year ended June 30th, 2022. Specifically tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about financial performance for the past year, share some highlights, some trends we noticed. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the compliance reporting and various opinions we issue in that regards. And then finally, as your auditors, our professional standards require that we communicate certain topics to the board, and so we'd like to briefly comment on those as well. So as stated, I'm going to start out with some financial highlights. Right off the bat, we'd like to talk a little bit about revenue. So hopefully you can see on the screen what we're going to be doing is comparing revenues for 2021, which are the green bars, to revenues for 2022, which are the blue bars. We're happy to say some positive news. Revenues actually increased significantly this past year. Total increase was about 11.8 million, which is about 5% compared to the previous year. This was driven almost entirely by federal and state sources of revenues. Federal revenues actually increased by 9.3 million. State sources increased by 2.2 million. These primarily, we'd attribute these to some additional sources of aid that were available as a result of the pandemic. And the district's ability to earn these by incurring qualifying expenditures. I'd then like to talk a little bit about expenses on the flip side. Here we have a quick breakdown of expenditures. Again, 2021 is going to be on the left, 2022 is on the right. Expenditures, so we talked revenues increase, expenditures actually decrease. So expenditures are down by about 14.3 million compared to the previous year, as well as actually a 5% decrease. The culprit, you can see that, well, I'm actually not sure I could describe that color of that bar. This one right over here. I'm an accountant, not an artist, I hate to say. So this is capital outlay. So these are expenditures on buildings, remodels, furnitures and fixtures, equipment, things like that. There was a significant decrease compared to the previous year, actually a decrease of about $35.4 million. This specifically relates to a lot of projects that were in process as of the previous year, reaching completion in the current year. And being placed in service. As well, again, this is a strong $35 million decrease. We did have some increases both in regular and special instruction. There's obviously not one specific cause, but we would attribute a fair share of this to increases in staffing costs as a result of scaling back up after the post-pandemic period. I'd then like to talk a little bit about the general fund balance. Again, 2021 on the left, 2022 on the right. The fund balance for the general fund, this is the accumulation of revenues and expenditures up through year end. So as you can see, the fund balance, it did decrease this past year, about $5 million from the previous year. This is as a result of the general fund's revenues being approximately 5.8 million less than their expenditures. Again, this is another area where some of those increased staffing costs play a role. Otherwise, in terms of the breakdown, your non-spendable fund balance, which is one of the three components of it, relatively consistent compared to the previous year. That's the green portion of the bar. Same with your restricted fund balance, which are items that are required to be expended in certain ways. And then your unassigned fund balance, which is everything else that was obviously took the brunt of the decrease, which is completely normal. That would be expected unless some of those restricted fund balances were spent. So up till now, we've really been focused on governmental funds. I'd like to talk a little bit about the school nutrition fund as well. Really, this can be summed up with just more activity across the board this past year. So if you think about 2022 compared back to 2021, there was a lot more in-person activity instruction. So obviously, the types of things, school lunches that the nutrition fund does, there were more revenues, more expenses. Federal appropriations increased quite significantly as well. So you can see the key number is the 2.8 million. That is the change in fund balance from 2021 to 2022 because essentially federal appropriations increased enough to more than cover the costs of increased expenditures. So that takes us through the financial statement highlights and that portion of the presentation. I'd also just like to talk a little bit more about some of the reports we issue as part of our audit. So the district is required to receive an opinion in accordance with government auditing standards, and as your auditors, of course, we provide that. Specifically, the key here that we want to talk about is that our audit is not designed to test internal control, and so we don't go out of our way to express an opinion on internal controls. However, obviously, the audit is a very involved process. We may come across deficiencies as part of our audit, and so if that happens, of course, we want to communicate that. This past audit, we did have one deficiency we identified. This is something we consider a significant deficiency, and it specifically relates to the recording of two audit adjustments, which I'll cover a little bit later in this presentation. For cutoff around year end. So items that should have been in accounts payable or should not have been in accounts payable, and vice versa with expenditures, of course. In addition, we do a little bit of work over certain state compliance requirements. So these are things that the state of Iowa asks us to look at. These are disclosed in the actual financial report. Pretty much all we want to comment on is there was one item of noncompliance. This related to the reporting of various certified enrollment figures. This is not to minimize it by any means, but this is something that's relatively common. Aside from that, there were no other items of noncompliance. In addition, we do issue an opinion in accordance with single audit standards. So this specifically relates to the federal grants that the school receives. As part of that, the federal government requires that we audit the expenditures of those grants. So this past year, we tested the ESSER grant. Those are the COVID relief funds. And then we tested Title I funds as well. It's important to say we had an unmodified or clean opinion from a single audit perspective, so everything was good there. However, we may come across certain compliance findings as well. So we did have one compliance finding from our test work this year. There is a requirement with the Title I funds where any withdrawals of students from the school district are, there's written documentation, maintained of that. We tested 25 students, 24 of them were fine, but we did have one where we were not able to obtain written documentation. So that's something we report, but obviously, again, 1 of 25. As well, I'll just point out, the two programs we tested account for over 60% of the scheduled federal expenditures. Finally, as I stated, there are certain things we're required to communicate to the board as your auditors. So right off the bat, I may have buried the lead, but we do want to make clear that we have issued an unmodified opinion over the financial statements. In other words, that is a clean opinion. That's the highest level of opinion that the district can receive. So that is good news, of course. In your review of the financial statements, we do also think it may be helpful to communicate that there are certain estimates in the financials. I'll just call those out briefly, but those are disclosed in the letter to the board. There is the estimate for the liability for your health and dental insurance. There are certain actuarial assumptions that go into the calculation of the pension and OPEB plan liabilities. There's also estimates related to your receivables for local option sales tax receivables, excuse me. And then finally, there are depreciable lives of capital assets. So again, were we to identify any issues there, that would be part of our communications, but we do just want to call out that those estimates are there. As well, during our audit, we may come across certain items that require an adjusting entry or correction entry to be posted. We did have 2 of those in the current year. Again, that is the item I've already discussed related to that deficiency where there were 2 corrections posted to accounts payable. Those are also disclosed in the letter, and again, those were posted, so the financials you do have do reflect those entries. There also may be items that kind of fall into the same bucket but are not material, and collectively we agree that these are not required to be corrected. We did have one item there. Again, it actually does technically relate to the same situation I've described so far, but because it is a small dollar amount, it wasn't posted. Finally, I did just want to talk a little bit. There was a new accounting standard adopted this year. This is GASB statement number 87. This relates to leases. This changes the presentation of certain leases. You'll note there was one lease that was entered into during the current year, which is now showing up as a right of use asset and as a lease liability on the statement of net position. Other than that, if there was anything out of the ordinary, any significant difficulties we had during the audit, disagreements with management, if management felt the need to consult with other accountants, et cetera, we would be required to communicate that. However, there was nothing of that type, so happy to communicate there were no issues in that regard. So with that said, I guess thank you so much to the board for your time and everyone else. We always appreciate sharing the results of our audit. Definitely have to thank Leslie as well for all of his assistance during the audit. We know it's not the funnest, and it's quite a time commitment that we put on his plate, so we appreciate his and the rest of the folks' help as well. If there are any questions on the report or letters or my presentation, I would be happy to address them at this time.
I would open it up if any directors have any questions, comments. Okay, thank you.
President Malone, I'd just like to share, thank you again, Aaron, for the presentation and the work of your team during the audit. The findings that he did present, they were discussed with us during the field work, and we'd already put in, prior to the issuance of this report, our corrective action plans going forward. Those related to the accounts payable are primarily, as Aaron referenced, looking at contractor statements, and they bill at, they don't cut off exactly on June 30th, and then so we have to make an estimate of how much was done prior to June 30th versus after that. And so have worked with my staff to develop a process to do that going forward. So hopefully we don't have similar type things that would occur in a future period. And the Title I one, the team had already identified that as well and put in the next steps before I even had to respond to Aaron and his team. So we're working hard to make sure that those don't happen again when they do happen. And the other one related to the enrollment is those are just minor adjustments that happen each year primarily between the way students get counted from one district to another. The state certifies and comes back later and finds out subsequent information that the residency of a student was not correct or an ELL student wasn't served in the right number of years, and so they make those adjustments, and every year we have a couple of those out of the almost 15,000 students that we're counting. So while again, we don't like mistakes, we understand that with that many students and defining where they fall within the code is a challenge sometimes. So
I did have just one question. I know you said that it will be posted online for the public, but can you tell me exactly where, just for public record, if people are listening and they're like, but where is it?
Under the departments tab, the business office section, and then there's an item that says financial reports, and I will work with Kristen's team to get that posted yet this week, but we wait until after it's been presented to the board.
Great, thank you.
I didn't want you to close it, so just be careful. I'm looking at my phone because I took screenshots of the document. For the public and for all of us, I thought there was some interesting data in it. For example, the data about the biggest employers. For example, in the school district is third. And then looking at that list of the biggest employers, there's several of those that may not be here sooner than later. So that's something that, again, as we're looking at the outlook of our funding and everything, I just found that to be very relevant. So it's as boring as that audit report was, there was also some good stuff in there. Got better toward the end, more exciting. Yeah.
Thank you. Were there additional comments from the board? Okay.
I just like the fact that these are boring presentations, which means nothing screwy is going on. And that's really a tribute, to Les and the work that he does and his team. And so hopefully, we'll have boring reports moving forward, but certainly your work has been appreciated all these years.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our annual enrollment demographic and class size report, and I believe that will be Deputy Superintendent Courtmeyer.
Thank you, Kristen, and good evening, everyone. The annual enrollment demographics and class size report is being offered this evening. I'll switch over to the report. And this is a combined report intended to be a single source of information. Matt and I would often talk about in years past that there's a couple of great reports that we would just access constantly over the years. That's the APR, the enrollment report, and now Chase has done a nice job with his team of bringing you the operations report each year too. So those are three nice reports to be able to have at your fingertips year in and year out. But this will give you information related to student counts, characteristics of students, and it contains data as far back as the 1999-2000 school year to present day. This data is all captured around the October 1st count date, which of course you know that the state regards as the official count date for school districts for budgeting purposes. Both the enrollment information and demographic information is also uploaded to the state websites eventually. As the state continues to wash through our data, some of that's been posted to these links that you see in the report here on page 2, while others is still being washed through. We did realize that last week they did upload one of the reports, and we've got a discrepancy in it, so I'll need to amend the one on, I think it's page 8 around head count. So it's not certified enrollment count, but it is the graph that we've contained there. Our numbers, our head count numbers aren't matching. But if we move into the report then, pages 3 through 8 do talk about certified enrollment. And again, page 8 will have us looking at head count there. But as a district, we use head count, and we also use certified enrollment counts for a variety of purposes. Depending on that purpose, for instance, certified enrollment for the funding, typically, we will count traditional full-time students who don't require special services as a 1.0 level of funding, while those students who might receive more services or even less services from the district carry different weighting. Les is kind to us year in and year out and provides the outlook, and I think that's on pages 5 to 7 here, and it's a report that we pull from the Department of Ed's website that shows the breakdown of what the certified enrollment looks like from last year compared to this year. And we've been referencing this quite a bit as we've been in our budget discussions the last couple of months here, but our certified enrollment this past year, or in October 1, was 14,439.84 students. That's an increase of 44.92 students over the previous year. We have not seen, as we've been talking about, a rebound from our highest year, which was that 2019-20 school year when we had 14,572 students in. Over winter break, Les shared some information from his IASBO group, and I heard the same kind of numbers or quotes, I think on the radio one evening, just talking about nationally, you know, we're seeing the same thing across America with public school enrollment dropping, and then trying to theorize why that might be happening. Some of the things being mentioned are, you know, lower birth rates, some impact on homeschooling and such. And I think when we are able to hear about the demographer's report later in the month, we'll get more of an indication too of what, you know, what's happening not only on the national level but locally here as well. So those few pages there give you an outlook on certified enrollment. This next page, page 8, this is that head count, and where we're seeing discrepancy with what the state ended up publishing on January 8th. Not so much at the high school level, a little bit at the junior high level, but we saw some discrepancies in what we had in our head count number at the elementary level versus what the state is pulling. So I've got both Amanda and Austin from Adams' department looking into that, and you know, we'll work with the state to, if we feel like there's an error that's been made with that pull. Then the next section of the report, the second main section, is around district demographics. And in this section, we provide information around race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, English language learners, and special education. We try to present graphs with a variety of looks. So you'll get head count, you'll get changes in number, you might get changes in, or percentages or changes in percentage. With race and ethnicity, our trend continues to play out, and that is that our racial and ethnic diversity of the district continues to grow. Specifically, you see gains in our Black and African American population, Hispanic population, and only more recently tracked that multiracial student population. So our white student count and percentages continue to go down while our diversity continues to increase. That information is found on pages 9 through 12. As far as socioeconomic status, school districts often use the number of students that are approved for free or reduced price lunch as an indicator of socioeconomic status. This is presented on pages 13 through 18. And for this particular area, I thought I'd highlight just the difference in the last 24 years or so of where we've gone, 18.3% in the 1999-2000 school year to almost 40% this past year. So more of our students are living in poverty, of course. The next section, pages 19 through 22, provide a look at what's been happening over those years with our English language learners. And not as a surprise to anyone, and following what you heard at the Board Education Committee meeting before winter break, our numbers certainly have exploded in the English language learner programming from 186 students back when when the state was first tracking this to over 1,900 students. With the caveat that, in that 24-year period, the Department of Ed has required us to not only assess students differently, but also counting for budgeting purposes. That's changed over the years. And again, you full well know that when you set your legislative priorities and are asking for ELL students to continue to be counted past a certain amount of years. So there's been some headway or some traction made in that arena, which has been nice. And then last but not least, our special education services. I think this is something that we can be proud of, and again, we show 24 years worth of statistics here on pages 23 to 26, and at one point we had an all-time high of 14.3% of our students in the district were receiving services, and that would have been in the 2005-2006 school year. And this year we have our all-time low of 9.4% of our students being served. And I think that's a huge credit to our teachers and our building administrators for the hard work that they're doing to implement multi-tiered systems of supports. And you guys hear us talk often about MTSS, but this really is where the rubber is meeting in the road, where we can provide interventions at the general education level so that our students don't have to receive necessarily specially designed instruction. So have we hit the sweet point or sweet spot where we are serving the students that have had time and opportunity to respond to other general education interventions? I think that's something to be pretty proud of. And then to close out the report, we've got class size information. We did give you kind of a peek at that, if you remember, back in September, and so these looks aren't too drastically different, just maybe a little bit. I think in September, as far as elementary, we were showing you some information regarding how elementary students had performed. Not only did we show you the RAM, but how they were performing with their FAST assessments with growth, with reading and math, if you remember that. But first I'm going to talk about secondary. The page 27 shows the median class sizes, and I probably should move. It shows the median class sizes for subject areas. And there's a few classes here that wouldn't have, Austin wouldn't have put in this report for us, such as advisory, success center, maybe like PE waivers. But it gives you a kind of a general look across all of our secondary buildings of what that landscape looks like as a median, right? So that's not where everybody is all the time, that is the median. What we did next then is in pages 28 through 34, we give you that more detailed look of the frequency of class size by buildings. And I just want to point out that last year we did have some feedback, from a community member or parent that asked us to think about how we're representing the graphs. And we kind of debated, do we want to give how we've done it previously, or do we want to set everybody with the same amount of students there off to the left, the number of sections. And so we've got all buildings plotted kind of the same way for you to look at. Hopefully that feels more favorable to the person that was making that comment. But you can see that some of our class sizes are fairly small on the left end of the graph there, and some of them are fairly large on the right. So you might wonder, what are some of those classes where we might only see a single student or a couple students in each of those sections? And as far as the lower student counts, those typically tend to be either college course enrollments or special education course enrollments. So it could be things like fundamentals and essentials, math, English, et cetera, and then college courses like Calculus 3, Beginning Chinese, AP Physics 2. And then last but not least, elementary. And I'm sorry if I've created any confusion here. That's why I also loaded the other RAM document that we shared with you in September. That was the August 17th. And so what we did here was, again, we pull all this data from October 1, and we let the formulas run how they normally would behind the scenes. So based on what the board policy says about class size and the formulas running, interestingly enough, what this produced on 10-1 was, if you look at that top left quadrant, it would have deployed 349 FTE across the system in our 22 attendance centers. And that's exactly what we have staffed in the system, is 349. So it worked out well. Now, it didn't work out perfectly that they were situated right, but in all of that, from August 17th when we did that staffing until 10-1, if we were to restaff, which we know that that's a nightmare and messy, and that doesn't make people happy, doesn't make staff happy, doesn't make parents happy, we would have only seen 6 sections change. We would have seen 3 buildings receive a section and 3 buildings lose a section. So that's getting staffing pretty down to the wire, pretty good back in August. So feel pretty proud about that. But sorry for any confusion that created. JP did a nice job of catching what's going on with that October RAM there. So thanks for that, JP. And that's the report. So at this time, I'd take any questions.
I would open it up to directors for any questions or comments that anyone would have.
I spent a lot of time looking at these, and I just have some observations that I wonder what you think about. If you look at the class sizes when you compare the high schools, and then you look at the data that you can glean from pages 35, 36, and 37, you can kind of figure out roughly the FRL at the 3 high schools. West and City are comparable. They're going to be high 40s, mid to high 40s. And Liberty's going to be about between 20 and 25%. And then if you look at your graphs showing class sizes, which are on pages 28, right? That's going to give you frequency of class sizes at City, Liberty, Tate, and West. What my observation is we have much higher FRL at West and City and larger class sizes at West and City. So that's just something that I look at and think, I wonder if there's something that we can do to mitigate that, because that's not ideal. Just pointing it out as an observation and something that we need to keep our eye on. Because obviously we ram our elementaries, and you can look at those numbers. I've also looked at these and loaded them up, like I said, to understand what they project, what the trajectory of that FRL is going to be. And we ram our elementaries based on FRL. And those same kids go to middle school and high school. So I just want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also, I would just mention that if you look at, the observation of who we're serving and how well we're serving them, which is something that I see very clearly when you used each of those examples, at the same time that Governor Reynolds is undermining public education while we're in this meeting, saying things, defamatory things about public education. You look at these charts, you see who we serve, and I'm so proud of the work you guys are doing, and great job representing it to us and walking us through these, because these are the facts, right? This is what's actually happening, not the BS that's being said at a speech in Des Moines.
Thanks, Mary Kay.
Yeah, very well put. I agree. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Deputy Superintendent Courtmeyer.
Thank you.
We would move on to our discussion item. Superintendent Degner, it has you listed, so I'm sure you will throw it to someone on your team or you will kick it off.
Yeah, thank you, President Malone. We had talked here earlier this fall about a new policy surrounding our fighting assault and physical aggression and some of the problems we'd been seeing in our buildings, and we felt it was probably time to come back to you with an update about how that policy's been implemented and some of the numbers that we're seeing as far as students affected. And then we also wanted to highlight a success story that's come out of some of that work that is not punitive in fashion, but we have Brad Kelly and Priscilla Culp here tonight too. And so Lucas is going to kind of start with some of the data, and then Brad and Priscilla are going to talk to you about some of the work they've been engaged with. Laura wanted to be here this evening, but she's not feeling well today, this week. So we'll start with Lucas, and then he'll flip it over to the rest of the team after that.
Thank you, Superintendent Degner. You stole my intro for Priscilla and Brad, who are going to do, just to give an example of one of our preventative measures that are also part of this policy. So much is talked about with the numbers, but there's been a lot that's been done behind the scenes with our administrators, with our district staff to try to build up our MTSS and in particular our SEBH interventions within our building. So when we take a look specifically at our numbers since this policy began at the beginning part of November, we've had 2 students that have transitioned to the online learning program, again with that first infraction of 30 days. One of the other items that we wanted to note is the number of students that are within our 4 high schools, and that's 2 students across all 4 buildings. But also the number of students that might have had 1 infraction that are on behavior contracts. When we talk about behavior contracts...
Could you slow down just a wee bit?
I sure can, Maka. Thank you very much. I talk very fast. I apologize.
It's great. I just want to hear it well.
Yeah, you're
Thank you,
thank
Maka.
you.
Actually, could you just repeat what you just said? 'Cause I missed it.
Yes. Usually Eliza's supposed to kick me under the table if I'm talking too fast. Is that better?
No, that's on you. Yeah, that's better. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. So when we take a look at our numbers, so much is talked about with the numbers, but we've done a lot of work with our admin teams looking at the different systems that are in place within our high schools. Since the policy began at the beginning part of November, we've had 2 students across our 4 buildings that have been placed in the online learning setting for the first incident of 30 days. But we also have some students that have had other incidents since that policy began. We have 31 students that are on behavior contracts within our buildings. So that means an incident occurred involving physical aggression or assault. And what we try to do then when those incidents do occur, and unfortunately they have occurred within our buildings, is to make sure that we have a collaborative effort with our students and our families and our staff to be preventative, to make sure that they don't happen again, if at all possible. So one of the things that we really wanted to highlight with those behavior contracts is different systems that can be put in place within our buildings. So taking a look at our space and Nest, which we had a discussion about at a previous board meeting, as well as different counseling supports, as well as administrative supports that are in place within the building to try to limit the number of multiple incidents that do occur. One of the things that we do want to highlight, as Matt had mentioned, are the different preventative measures that our district is taking. And Priscilla and Brad are going to talk about an activity or an event that occurred before winter break. And after they're done, I'm certainly more than happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding it. And thank you again for reminding me. I get that piece and that note very often. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is cool. Let's see, we did have, just to go back a little bit, I think it was about last year when the equity team was spending time at West and Northwest, and we noticed that in these circles and these conversations, there was always this ongoing beef, if you would. And so we were saying, like, well, we got to do something. We got to put these young ladies together, because there's always that was about the same time that this documentary came out called Push Out, the criminalization of black girls. And so as the summer rolled on, we were talking about ways that we can engage this particular population, because some of those young ladies who were transitioning from 8th grade into 9th grade, the last time they had been in a school environment was like, what, 6th grade? So their whole junior high experience had been not that of your traditional junior high experience. So we met in the summer. We were going to have Dr. what's her name? She was going to maybe do some work with some small group of young ladies, and we're like, well, we need to do more. We need to do more. So as the school year transitioned, as we began to start 2022, 23, you know, we were doing those circles, doing those things, and I think at about the same time when all this fighting was going on and the policy was coming about, we were saying that, okay, you know what, we just have to do something. So we sat in the equity team and we came up with some ideas about how would we reach some of these young ladies. So we called the high schools and we said, can you give us a list of your, I think we said something along the lines that if they have been suspended for 2 or more days or 2 or more times this year, we would like to have a opportunity to sit and meet with them. And the principals got back with us, and we were like, we're going to do this later, we're going to do this later, and then the policy came out, and it's like, no, we have to do this now. So we were able to get we had over 60 young ladies from the secondary schools and junior high and high schools, and we called it Black and Brown Girl Enrichment. We spoke with community members. We actually got the opportunity to get a lot of our brown and black female administrators and staff, and even people who were working. I think we invited people who were in accounting. We were just saying, let's be in a situation to show these young ladies what their future can look like. So we had about 60 of them show up. And we did an enrichment, we did some implicit bias training, we did some ACEs training, and we did a reflection training that Priscilla led. Laura led the ACEs, no, Laura led the Debbie led the ACES piece, Laura led the implicit bias piece, and it was one of the most transformative moments we had with these young women, because so many times there's conflict within the school, then we tend to forget that there's conflicts within the community. So we brought the community together, and we had just this lovely outpouring of community members. I believe we had invited Ruth Ann to be a part of that too, and the way time had went, it was just so, everything happened so quickly. And I believe Matt signed some certificates. So we did some certificates of completion, and we handed out the certificates. And the young ladies, their face when we dropped them off is like, when are we going to do this again? We were just at Southeast the other day, and one young lady said, when are we going to do this again? And so I think, what did we decide? March. So sometime in March, before spring break, we're going to bring these young ladies back together. In the interim, though, we are going to the schools. We are having conversations. We are trying to track data just to see how impactful this was for these young ladies. And so even though we have this plan for March, we do have the, we also have, we're preparing to be in the schools and partnering, I guess, with UAY, G World, to help us until we can get them back together and do this. And I think that we're saying that this is going to be an ongoing thing, and we're hoping to maybe look at ways to work with some of our young men. And
just to add to what Brad said, I just want to publicly acknowledge and thank every administrator at the secondary school who was able to collaborate and support this effort. Also to Fred, who allowed us to use his space at the Purpose Place to hold this just great event for our students. While there, they received breakfast. They also received lunch. So, you know, they ate. We were able to talk, have great conversations, and just hear from our students what really is like going on, what they feel and why they feel that way, and just providing that space for them. So that was eye-opening. And as a first event, really from scratch, grassroots, we thought outside the box and said, you know, let's just have a day where we can invite these students, hear their concerns, and offer support. And then also to provide support on behalf of different personnel, like Brad said, different administrators in the district. So hopefully in March and ongoing, we can include more people in the district, the district admin team, just to also just engage in great conversation. And we did speak of the new policy and just reiterated the importance of, if there's a problem, if there's a concern, to at least find at least one person in your school. Doesn't necessarily have to be their teacher. It could be an administrator, a counselor. It could be SFA, just at least if they can have one adult to talk to. But the event was very, very engaging from beginning to end. So also for Luke and his support and just his experience and adding to what the day could possibly look like. So thank you.
Thank you. Assuming we're at the end of that, and I wanted to turn it over to any additional comments or questions from directors. Right?
I just think in general, one thing I would say, just to kind of wrap up the points you heard from our team here, is I always think it's really cool when people say something won't work and then it works, right? And so whether it's talking about this, or whether it's talking about how our kids can respond to, you know, a policy and some structure and also self-regulate. And of course they don't have all the tools to do that yet, right? That's why they were getting into some situations before. But then when we also have another event where people could look at that and say, there's no way you can bring all these kids together and have a successful event. This isn't going to work. And then it does, right? I mean, I think that just speaks to even what Director Pilcher-Hayek was talking about, the beauty of public ed before, when you're doubted and questioned and, you know, people don't see, how can you be successful with this given circumstance? And then you can. I mean, that should make all of us feel really good about our ability to uplift and change people's lives and have a different conversation and outlook about what's ahead for their school year, right? Because these are the type of situations that would continue to trip them up. Academic success becomes an afterthought. You never get to the conversations that kid deserves. So just really cool stuff, from seeing that it didn't necessarily go a direction we didn't want it to go with impacting a really high number of students, and then also something that's going to be long-term, beneficial, preventative work. These guys wouldn't have done that, been able to do that 3 or 4 months ago. They were chasing their tail, running out to schools to try to repair situations and pick up the pieces, right? So thank you for supporting that work, because I hope you see tonight how it paid off, right, and how we were able to shift the conversation.
I would add to that, and of course, I'm going to talk about beautiful public education again. But no, seriously, what you did was acknowledge what it took, and it's something, it's a microcosm, right, of what we need statewide, which will never happen, but countrywide. You guys acknowledged the specific situation that certain parts of our student population are in. You didn't ignore it. You didn't judge it, you acknowledged it, and you said, okay, that's what's going on? Well, then how do we work with what's going on? And that's what public education does, but what you guys did, you made that into a bit of a science, and you were totally successful with it. I think it's so great to hear about that program, and I look forward to hearing you guys keep on doing something like it, and like you said, extending it to other students, other demographics.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, we moved from a situation, and I, now I'm working in Cedar Rapids School District, and so the problems aren't at all unique to our school district. And I think as educators, we end up just putting out fires all of the time. And it sort of just becomes the job, and you don't have time. Like I said, we're going to do it later. And I think sometimes then that situation, and I'm appreciative of all of the sort of wheels that come together to make this possible. Back in the day when Mary Ann Coleman was the equity department, or Kingsley Botchway was by themselves the equity department. So this speaks to the ongoing work that has been going on over years to recognize an issue, put some long-term systemic solutions so that we can start to see this happen. And so then when something blows up, rather than put out fires, because I guarantee you, I don't think we got as many emails, but most people, when we put that policy out, it was just, how dare you be so punitive, with no solutions, no recommendations for how to do it better, just you can't possibly do this, who are you going to hurt? And to see it, and Brad, you use the word, because we start, right, with this idea that we want to move from punitive to restorative. And then I think we have to ask the question, what are we restoring? Are we restoring back to something that was broken to begin with? What's the point? But it's transformative, because that's the goal of these circles, and that's the goal of this work, is to take those individuals and for them to transform into something that they didn't have before. They didn't have those skills, because that's what's missing, right, is the skill. And they're caught up in whatever they're caught up in, but to give them the space and the lack of judgment, to remove that judgment, give them the space to talk so their voices are heard. Yeah, it works. It works when you listen to kids. It works when you don't judge them and you don't come at them as a problem, and you recognize where they are at and you meet them there, and then you give them the tools to build up better than they were before. That's why we're here. That's why we're in public education, because we're going to take every kid that walks through the door. And now we're starting to see some things in this district that are working in very tangible ways, right? It isn't just calming down the violence. It's now those kids know how to handle stressors when they come their way. And they are going to be so much better prepared than kids who never went through that at all. Like, they're going to be so much ahead of the game on what they're able to do. So thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank all of you folks, fellow board members included, who continue. I think it was, I don't know how long ago it was, when we had a room full of people telling us we had 24 hours to solve this problem. And that's hard to hear, and it's tense in those moments. But what we knew then and we know now is we're just going to keep doing the work every 24 hours. 24/7, we're going to do this work, and we're going to keep trying, and we're going to come back. So I just thank you to show this. keeping the emotion in check. It's okay to cry, but I'm trying to keep my voice clear. I've got the tears going behind the mask. So just thank you. I mean, this is, and we're going to take data and we're going to analyze this and we're going to come back because this is the work. This is what happens. So we're not just constantly saying, well, there we go. We lost another education day. We lost another year. No, we're doing the work. We're transforming lives. And you're right, Maka, it is public education. This is what it's all about. So thank you for showing all of us it's possible. And I don't want anybody to go there, but maybe just pick up the phone and share some of your work with Cedar Rapids, please. I'll ask.
Or with the governor's office, maybe, too. I really agree with Maka, and thank JP and Maka for their perspectives and sharing those with us. I also want to say how humble I am at your abilities to function in the settings that you've designed and asked for. Getting with a group of 60 kids, you know, that are mad as hell about a lot of things is not an easy environment to be in. And so that you can do that Luke can do it, Laura, other people on the staff, other teachers, other principals. That's amazing to me, and we need to be prolific in our praise of you as individuals, and thank you, and ask you to continue to work with us. And in that continuing to work with us, perhaps you know, as you go along here, there are things that you think that the district can do that require the board to take some action. You know, come and tell us. I think I'm sure we will listen to you, just as the students that were here a year ago or so told us to listen to them.
So I talked about rock stars earlier in the evening, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I think both of you belong in that category. I know that you've been working and persevering through the restorative movement for many years, and starting out at the grassroots level when it wasn't a district initiative, and you've persevered, you've committed, and the connections that you're making with our students and the mentorship, it's just it's amazing, truly, and you are changing lives. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you to not only our admin team, but especially to both of you for being the boots on the ground in the building, working with our students. And I had heard that you all were viewing Push Out, and I hadn't had a chance to view the documentary, but I did read the book, and I recommend that for anybody wanting to get a glimpse of the experience of a Black girl in America in our school system, and how we as a district allowed them to talk about their experiences and not work to push them out, but to bring them back in and allow a safe space for them to address some of the issues and trauma that they deal with, and how society view Black girls and Black women as a whole. So I wanted to commend you all, because I know just reading that book, it sort of was a little bit trauma-inducing. If you're a Black woman, it takes you back to those experiences that I even had as a student. But being there and offering that safe space for our young ladies to confront some of the issues, but also work to build themselves up and to allow a place for them to flourish. So thank you so much for that. And with that, I don't know if there's any additional comments, and if not, thank you again, guys. We will move to our one action item that we have on the agenda, and it's a board meeting date change. Superintendent Degner, did you want to add?
Yeah, we have a large number of team members absent on the 24th of January. We're continuing our learning around high reliability schools. Association President Shutt and I have also targeted that week for some engagement around some of the budget conversations we're going to do with staff. So we were requesting that the board change their official meeting date from the 24th to the 31st of January.
Are there any discussions regarding that action item? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I would move that we change our January meeting date this year to January 31st.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open.
I'm a yay vote, Kim.
Thank you, Director Clausen. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Okay, so we'll make a note that our next meeting will be January 31st. That takes us to our legislative update. The legislative session kicked off this week, yesterday, and we had to cancel our December forum, but hopefully next Friday from 4 to 5 here, we'll have our first legislative forum. I don't know, Superintendent Degner, if you want
Yeah,
to.
you just said that, and I think I should probably send an email reminder to the group here as soon as tomorrow, just so we try to get a good number there. You have our legislative priorities, or the board's legislative priorities attached there. I think we're all very familiar with those. If you've been checking your Twitter feed or your websites here, you know the governor delivered the State of the State address and talked around Ed Savings Account, seems where the conversation started. I'd also got an email from a legislator that the bill for vouchers had just dropped, and so I'm assuming we'll see something as early as tomorrow to read through, or even yet this evening, how long ever you want to stay up looking at it. But we know that the school choice voucher conversation is going to be coming. I think one thing we wanted to kind of get some opinion from the board on, how actively you want the district to be part of any conversation in response to that. I don't know if some people saw the little commercial that the governor had already been sending around some choice that I think will probably be blasted in the airwaves here soon. If there was any kind of response from the district that you felt comfortable with, or if the board wanted to have a response, not even a question that necessarily needs to be answered this evening, but it's probably one that's important for the coming weeks and months about, just there's probably an element about, if we are going to be a choice environment, why Iowa City is the right choice as well, and why the Iowa City Public School District's a choice. And so I just think those are reality things for us that are going to become more apparent as this conversation moves, that we need to be considering and thinking about. I did not see a percentage for SSA included in the speech as I looked through the text of it, so I don't think we got a number proposed there. You found one?
Her budget was released at the same time as her speech, and the budget proposes a 2.5 increase in
So
supplemental
2.5 was increased for that, so I did not see that part. I just looked at the text of her
And I would
comments.
I would bookend with the voucher program. Last year, I believe her number was $5,000 would be deposited for each student.
It
into
was the
their-
full amount
It's
now.
the full amount this year that she's raised it to the full per pupil expenditure.
The Ed Savings
The
Account approach, I
107
think, is important, because my read on that is it goes as far as including that for homeschool folks, if it's a true Ed Savings account. So we'll learn more about it as it comes, but it seems like the shot was pretty far.
And I don't want to get into that whole talk tonight, but last year she had income guidelines, and I don't know if they were going to do away with those.
This year, she's going to start with low-income families first, but in the next 3 years, she proposes to phase out income requirements totally. So there would be no income restrictions after 3 years of who can participate.
So, while obviously there's going to be some urgency around this, there also is very little ability to alter the course maybe. However, as far as our response goes, I do think what I've really appreciated maybe the most coming from the district in the past few years, communication-wise, are our videos. Because what we need to do is highlight how great things are. And we need to show how good it is here. Because if people are going to have a choice, this is why you choose Iowa City Community School District. And there's no end to the number of things. I mean, I don't think we do a good enough job telling our story the way it is. There's just so much going on. It's really hard to capture, especially in a sort of soundbite format. But we've got it. I mean, we've got tons of examples of all of the things we're going to do that private entities aren't going to be able to put up a varsity and a JV show choir at all of their secondary schools, or how many top-notch athletic opportunities, or how many amazing academic, the work we're doing with kids who are entitled or have special needs. The list goes on. So and I'm not saying that in or in replace of anything that might be just a statement coming out how we view things. I think that could be beneficial, but I do think telling our story is never a bad idea. And this might be a situation where we put some, because something like that takes time, that takes effort, that takes staff. But I think we've got a good story to tell, and I think, that's just something we can use in multiple ways. That's just my 2 cents.
Great. All right, I was just leaving it open just in case there was additional comment.
Oh, I'm too filled with rage, so I'm just.
Okay. I think it would be beneficial to have that conversation on how we can have that response once the rage goes down to more of a simmering rage. So perhaps
We'll start
we can
working on
have
some
that-
ideas, though. I
yeah.
think it sounds like you guys are open to it, and so we'll obviously be talking about this a lot in the coming weeks, but we'll start working on some thoughts. Kristen even shared some with me today, so. yep.
And I would just add, as we digest everything that she said tonight, there's 2 different types of response, and one is to highlight the different choices that our district offers, which I think is great. But there's a lot of misinformation spread about what she means by school choice, and a lot of the tenor tonight was, oh, if you're being bullied in your school, you have no place to go, and that's why you need this voucher savings plan. And that disinformation, I think, I would like to see us also counter the disinformation and say, of course not. Open enrollment is available to any student who's experiencing bullying and harassment. You don't need vouchers in order to help a bullied student. So I see it as kind of a 2-pronged response.
Exactly right. You have a dramatic amount of school choice right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Agreed.
ISTA has provided some good talking points for us to work with. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just need to spin that wheel hard and fast.
Agreed. Okay. Next up, Director Liaison Report. I don't know if anybody wanted to highlight anything that they took part in over the last month or since the last meeting.
Just to continue on that theme of how wonderful our public schools are, I thought I would just highlight the education committee meeting that we had last month. I think it was in the board retreat in October that I asked what sheltered instruction observation protocol was, and boy, did the ELL and Longfellow team deliver. And so I know that a lot of folks listen to the general board meeting, but if you really want to hear the amazing things that our teachers and our district is doing, listen to that education committee meeting from December 13th, and just the details on how they are improving ELL instruction and thereby improving instruction for all. It was very heartwarming. So,
Yes, I 100% agree with that. Go listen to it.
That's a good one.
Ruthina, I just might say that at the Black Voices Project meeting yesterday, or last night, we talked about, generally about the proposal to ask local jurisdictions to pass loss legislation and use revenue towards providing better preschool opportunities for 4-year-old kids. And there was considerable interest among the group in hearing that. So I'd like now to use my public time here to ask Matt and Lisa if they would consider coming to the next BVP meeting in February and maybe talking to the group.
Yeah, I think I was already planning on being at BVP that month, so I think that would definitely work. Charlie, I think it also, not to get ahead of Director Malone, but it ties to a conversation, I wanted to bring up an agenda setting too, so that's good.
Great, thanks. Thank you.
So then I guess that's a good segue to agenda setting. Since we moved the date of the board meeting, I'm assuming that P&G will also now be held on the 31st?
31st, I hope so.
Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure to document that,
Yep.
since the date listed is the 24th, so it'll be January 31st. And it looks like there's policy primers, the 500 series, and board norms.
I think that's correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. And then that moves us to our Regular board meeting, January 31st at 6 o'clock. Superintendent Degner, you had mentioned just now.
Yeah. So if a couple of things on there, we do have our equity update, which we'll be prepared to do. You're also going to notice in the draft agenda the safety training recommendations for students. We're going to bring back what we have learned over the last few months of studying that topic. Last night, Director Easton mentioned the conversation with the joint entities meeting. I do think it'd be wise for us to have a conversation as an actual just board ourselves about that preschool and about that ask and the tie-in to Lost. We know we've been committed to a goal of preschool, but we wanted to follow up with some additional information to you guys on that. So I think that I would ask that if we could agenda a topic related to preschool and Lost. And what was my other one I had here? Oh, and then the meeting we didn't talk about, President Malone, was Ed Committee on the 17th of January, if we could slot that in.
Yes.
And we'd like to do a couple examples around high reliability schools and how that's working. And our location that we would suggest would be Northwest Junior High. We'll probably highlight an elementary and a secondary example and show about how they got data, responded to data, made effective improvements and change at the building based level there. So those would be the things I had on my list. Thank you.
Okay. Any items from directors? Oh, I would open that up.
I have one. I'd like to have a refresher for both the board and the public about hate speech in comments. There are limits to it, and it was also, at least, I don't know that it's changed, but you used to have to connect your statement to something that was going to be addressed by the board on the agenda. So those two issues, whether or not we will continue to permit hate speech like that that was done tonight, if we have to legally, then we have to legally, but I'd like to know, and I'd like some more guidance about it. And I'd like to give that guidance back to the public so that everyone understands what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to allow. So it doesn't have to be on the next one, but I would like to get it on as soon as possible so that we don't have to continue to tolerate it.
Okay.
If we don't legally have to.
I'll probably ask Chase to connect with Allers and get an opinion from them, since, you know, it's, again, as we know tonight, right, a new relationship working with them, and it'd be a good chance for them to give us their lens on that. And
I mean, we can possibly, well, not possibly, but we can use tonight's concern as an example of whether or not.
I think
falls
even the
within hate.
twofold thing, right? I mean, about how close do the comments need to be to an agenda item, and then also the other idea around the hate speech and discrimination, and if we need to update any of our statements before the meeting and some of that, because I remember last time we've run into issues, that was also part of it about what comments we've made to commenters prior to that, and then how to follow through if they don't abide by the rules you guys set for your meeting.
That would be great.
Yep.
You know, it's always occurred to me that the board should require commenters to follow the same things that students are required to follow in their classroom settings.
Well, we just have to get some guidance
Yeah.
from legal on it.
Before we can, agreed. Were there additional items? I would like to circle back to hear more about how the cell phone policies are working. And especially since we have heard that one of our buildings is having great success. So if that's possible, it doesn't have to be next meeting. It looks like that meeting is getting full, but if possible, I would like that added to the first meeting in February and maybe have that admin team from Northwest come. So if that gives them time, if not, maybe the second meeting in February.
That's a great idea.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, get home safe. Thank you.